Good evening, everyone. Brian Smith, publisher of Inside the Nights on Fan Nation, powered by Sports Illustrated. And I'm going to bring a little bit of insight on a few features with this game coming up on Friday, UCF at Louisville. First things first, just to note, it will be UCF's first road game, and it will also be their only game this season against a Power 5 opponent. So in terms of ranking and all the other different things that go in with the discussion about Power 5 and non-Power 5, there's a little unique piece to this game. As for the game itself, there are a couple of matchups in particular that are really interesting to me, and I'm going to start out with my number one. That is UCF's defense trying to contain Malik Cunningham, the quarterback for the Cardinals. This is a dynamic athlete, a player that could play receiver, he could play running back, he could play safety, etc. But he is a quarterback. He has a big arm, and he can really spin it. His situation is always do really well for quite a bit of time, but then make a big mistake in a critical moment. That's his history, but now he's a very veteran player. He's not a guy that's young anymore, inexperienced. He has no excuses. His offensive line isn't too bad, but their running backs and receivers and tight ends are fairly young. I'll get into that in a second. So a lot of this game against UCF and their vastly experienced unit, I was just looking at the depth chart again, and just the front seven for UCF with who starts, all of them minus one player, Ricky Barber, who ironically played in the state of Kentucky last year at Western Kentucky before transferring to UCF, are junior seniors or fifth-year seniors. Very, very veteran team up front for the Knights, and it's why they dominate in the run game. Not only do they have size and athleticism, but they have experience. That kind of unit will give Louisville a little bit more of a problem because when you miss a run fit, when you miss any type of assignment, screen, anything else, this is an experienced quarterback. He's going to find it. He'll audible into the right play. He'll just take off with his legs. If you only put 5 in the box, he'll call his own number. He'll run a quarterback draw, quarterback power, option, whatever it is. He will get that team in the right play. UCF, however, isn't Eastern Kentucky. No offense to that ball club. They don't have a chance against Louisville, and they wouldn't have had a chance against UCF either. The Knights are dominant up front. They gave up less than 1 yard per carry against Boise State. They absolutely destroyed everything that Bethune-Cookman wanted to do as expected, but that's good that they actually followed through with that. And then finally, they did so pretty easily. They're not a team that has to blitz. Travis Williams will do so some. He's the defensive coordinator making some of those calls up front. But here's the bigger point. UCF does it just to throw teams off, to mix it up. They don't just stay in one formation. They're a multiple front. I expect that to be the case against Louisville. Try to keep Malik inside the pocket, whether it's any number of players that come up on the edge, a safety, a corner, whatever blitz. That's as much, not just to get the man down, but to keep him in the pocket. When Cunningham just stays in the pocket, his production is not as likely to be really good. He has the ability to throw the football down the field and hit strikes. I'm not saying he doesn't. But I will take my chances, and I will guarantee you the vast majority of coordinators that will face Louisville this year will take their chances inside the tackle box with Malik Cunningham. How he goes, Louisville will go. And that goes into point number 2. I mentioned it a moment ago, inexperience. If you want to see a very inexperienced unit, Louisville's receiving core / running backs and tight ends. 2 freshmen, 2 sophomores, 1 junior, 1 senior from the receiving core have caught a pass so far this year. A sophomore tight end and a freshman running back. That is very inexperienced. That doesn't necessarily mean that the average fan is going to see what's going on in, the stats or even some of the plays. Catching the ball is not everything. How you hold it when you run, how you pass protect. They've got a freshman running back that's a good football player. He really is. But again, he's a freshman. What do freshman running backs struggle at? Pass protection. What's he going to do when he has to block Big Cat Bryant because he beat somebody or he just got matched up with it? Good luck. Now, his name's Jalen Mitchell, and he's about 5'9", 5'10", 220 pounds. He's a strong young man. Big Cat's a senior, and he's 6'5", 245. Good luck. Again, that's not a good matchup. They're going to maybe look at things a little differently in passing situations. I'll be curious to see if Mitchell is in the game when it's 3rd and 8, 3rd and 12, something like that, because freshman running backs, again, they do not fare well in pass protection, and the Knights have a lot of athletes on the edge anyway. So that could be a difficult situation for Louisville to overcome. Their junior running back, he's only carried 11 times this year, Hassan Hall, but juniors, they're probably going to have better technique. Look for Hall to play a little bit more in the passing game, even if it's just a block, because that's such an important facet. They cannot have Malik Cunningham taking shots from Kalia Davis, etc., because the running back didn't help out properly or didn't know where he was going. With that, here's the other part. UCF, if you've really watched their defense so far this year, the running backs and the tight ends haven't killed them. Teams will throw the little side pad, just like UCF does, out in the flat, and just let an athlete be an athlete. You're going to see that. But nobody really attacks him over the middle. The linebacker core has done a great job. I'm not talking about 15, 20 yards down the field. I'm talking about the first 10 yards beyond the line of scrimmage. They've defended it well in the passing game. Baptiste and Bethune, all these guys, they're athletes, but again, they're experienced. If you can force Malik and these young guys just to play the perimeter, which is basically what UCF has done thus far against Boise State and Bethune-Cookman, perhaps there's a situation where UCF then can bring in some additional play calls with the defense. When you play against younger players in the skill spots, they're going to make some errors anyway. It may take Cunningham a little longer to get the ball off. UCF's not got the greatest secondary by any means, but it's improving with a little bit of pass rush, and UCF's been doing better getting after the quarterback, even though they haven't had a sack yet, ironically. I expect Cunningham to be put into some pretty difficult situations. UCF is not going to just sit back. They're going to come after him and, again, try to force him to go up the field because Kalia is in the middle. Good luck. He's not going to be blocked play after play. He's going to get in there. He's a tremendous interior pass rusher. That's going to be a big point of contention for Louisville. How do they handle that? Do they do some design rollouts where they're kicking out a guard or a tackle? That offense with Satterfield, he's a very good football coach. He's all about motions and shifts. His offense is just extremely complex to watch. The eye candy will drive you bananas. It's semi-option football, even when they're not running option, because everything he does is based on getting guys going laterally. Everything. So that is something that Malik kind of falls into is a good category for him. The quarterback is not just the guy that's going to sit there in the pocket anyway, but against UCF, they might have to do design things to get him outside the pocket. Otherwise, there could be some turnovers. One of the goals I have written down is at minimum, 2 turnovers. UCF should be able to get into a situation where they get a strip sack fumble from Cunningham. He doesn't always use great ball protection. On top of that, he's a runner first until otherwise proven, in my opinion. Now, I'm not saying he's not a good runner in general. He averages over 4 yards a carry when he just carries the ball, but he doesn't carry the ball like a running back literally. He doesn't always tuck it. So that's something to watch for. And the other is with the inexperienced route running that you're probably going to be witnessing when they play Louisville, UCF has a chance at a freebie somewhere. I really thought that was going to happen against Bethune, but their quarterback just flat out looked down the gun barrel and took hits and threw it. That's very NFL-like, and it's just hilarious because a lot of Power 5 quarterbacks do not do that. With that being stated, I expect at least 1, if not 2, to be just flat out freebies for UCF because of deflections, the ball coming out awkwardly because he's getting hit as he releases. I don't think that the Louisville Cardinals offensive line, it's necessarily going to be their fault, but UCF's run defense is so good. It's going to be 3rd and 5, 3rd and 7 for a lot of the game. And Malik can make those plays, no question, over and over again. But that doesn't mean that the guys that he's throwing to will be running the proper routes. And when I mean proper, I mean 100% in a literal sense here. 98% will get you beat all day long. Freshmen, sophomores, just a little bit off here or there, didn't run the route deep enough, didn't run the comeback route past the sticks. Little things like that get you beat in close ball games. UCF's defense, although they struggled for part of the game against Bethune with the short passing game, their run defense was so good Bethune only scored on 2 plays, and neither one of them was an inside the 20 play. They were shot plays. It is what it is. That's how you win games, is force teams to be one-dimensional. And thus far, that's what UCF's done. I don't believe Cunningham is going to win for Louisville without help. There can always be a guy that has a breakout game. Jalen Mitchell, the running back I mentioned a minute ago, could be that guy. He's 30 carries for 139 yards in the first 2 games. Hasn't reached the end zone, surprisingly, but he's a good running back. He's averaging just under 5 yards a tote. That's the guy that really needs to help him out. If they can get some running game and make it 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, the game changes dramatically. Then you have to respect Cunningham in the read option game, Cunningham in the draw, Cunningham sprint out, waggle, bootleg. Then he's a nightmare. 3rd and 6, he still might get it, but you'll take your chances. I just don't think that UCF's going to allow that very much, especially when UCF's defense, I mean, again, 6 out of the 7 players for the Knights that start in the front 7 are players that are at least in their junior, if not their senior or 5th-year senior. Armstrong at the Knight position, that's the hybrid. You have Big Cat, you've got Baptiste, you've got Bethune. Barber's the one exception, but he's a good football player. He's a sophomore. And then you have Montalvo, and then you have Davis. That's a big unit. It's an athletic unit, especially at linebacker. It's more about speed. It really just flat out fits how you would want to stop a spread quarterback. There's a couple really big guys. Yes, Kei'Trel is obviously a massive young man, and so is Ricky. But the other guys, it's more about foot speed. They are going to corral. So unless there's some busts, I think that Louisville is going to have some struggles. Moving over to one other just simple point about this, because of the situation and the game flow, how it's going to work out. If UCF can hold them consistently to 3rd and 5 or more, I wouldn't be surprised if Louisville was hovering around the 30% mark for 3rd down conversion for much of the game. If they are able to run the ball better than I anticipate, and I will be shocked, then that percentage could go to 40, 45% really quick. 3rd and 3, when you have a mobile quarterback like Malik, is very easy to make it happen. Your playbook is just absolutely enormous at that point. 3rd and 6, there's still quite a few plays, but the execution needs to be much higher because a lot of them are just passing plays. UCF will line up and force you to throw quickly, make it difficult with putting 6 or 7 guys in the box and bringing heat. Even against corners that haven't proven to be spectacular, that's a pinpoint pass with inexperienced guys for the most part. I like UCF chances in that. The one guy that could change that 3rd down, and he's not a spectacular player, at least not yet this year, but he's their senior, Josh Johnson. He's only got 81 yards in two games, but 8 catches. He's a move the sticks kind of guy. 3rd and 4, that might be somebody that Malik Cunningham looks for. Amari Huggins-Bruce, who's a freshman, has the most yards. He's the quick jitterbug type. He's kind of like Ryan O'Keefe. Those guys, you got to be careful in space. If you miss, it can be 40 yards in a heartbeat. So on the other side of the ball for the Knights, I think it's a little more straightforward. Louisville's defense just flat out does not stop the run very well. Until you prove otherwise, here we come. How are you going to stop us? We have a future NFL running back, number 5 in the backfield. He's coming in at about 215, 220. Good luck with him. And we have 3 or 4 linemen up front that are going to be starting for Lord only knows how many games. And they have a couple other guys that are really good too. This is not a unit that's going to struggle running the football against hardly anybody. I would put this unit against Alabama and think they could have some success. And Alabama probably has the best front 7 in college football. Being stated, I still think that the passing game is where the game will be won or lost. UCF is going to run the ball to a certain extent, and then Louisville will come up and literally put 8 men in the box. I know that he's a very good running back, but math is math. When you have 6 to block and they have 8 to rush, it's usually not going to end well. I'm looking for UCF not to run Dillon all that much against a really athletic defense. Why give him extra hits? I think the short passing game and to a certain extent, the intermediate passing game will be the telltale sign for the UCF offense. There is one player to note. He's leading the team in interceptions, and oddly enough, I do believe he's leading them in tackles for loss as well. Kei'Trel Clark. He had 2 picks against Eastern Kentucky. He's a corner. And he's also had multiple tackles for loss, I believe 2.5. So he's around the line of scrimmage. He's really good in coverage. I don't think that the Knights are going to challenge him much. Why would you? Go with the other guys. On top of that, and you can read this in the article this morning that I have up, this is a team that gives up over 150 yards rushing per game. You're going to pound the football to a certain degree until they really try to take it away. You might be able to get 1 or 2 big shot plays. They're risky because they're going to have more at the line than you can block. But Jalen Robinson, O'Keefe, Omari, all these guys are just super, super twitchy. If they get a clean release at the line of scrimmage, Louisville better be ready to run because that's a track team right there. And then there's Brandon, who's the guy that he's leading the team in touchdowns right now as the outside big receiver. He is kind of your outlet guy. And then there's Bowser as well. And then the X factor, of course. I keep waiting for him to break out. Mr. Richardson. He's my guy every week. I think that he's going to break out, but he hasn't yet. I'm curious to see how they utilize him against Louisville, especially if they're blitzing, because he's not a big guy that's going to help Dillon a lot in pass protection. But if he can throw a swing pass to him, make one guy miss, that can be 30 yards real quick, if not 80. Johnny's one of the fastest kids I've seen in Florida. That's saying something because Florida has a lot of track athletes. The one other part of this game that I think needs to be discussed is just the sudden change. That's the biggest thing in football. We talk about it at every level, high school, college, and pro. When somebody makes a turnover, you have 2 veteran quarterbacks. Both coaches know during sudden change, no matter how much they coach it into their guys, no matter how much they scream at the top of their lungs, players are creatures of habit. When they go back out on the field, talking about a defense, doesn't matter which side of the ball it is, that first play, they usually are not ready. When there's mental shock that there's a fumble or interception, that first play for the next series can be trouble for the defense. Look for shot plays, trick plays, or anything that is, quite frankly, been saved, although coaches will lie and say they don't save plays for big games. They do. Bold-faced lie all the time. With that being said, flea flicker, reverse pass, throwback screen, anything that UCF hasn't seen or Louisville has seen. These are 2 coaches that are very creative with their offensive play designs. Look for creativity against each other. Not one or the other, both. These are 2 guys that really understand offensive football. So with that, I just kind of wanted to go over a few game flow things, that the third downs and the running game, they're all a part of football, and it's really fascinating. I expect UCF to have more success than Louisville because their running game is better, it's more experienced, and their front 7 is more experienced. But where Satterfield has been tremendous throughout his career at Appalachian State and now at Louisville is with the eye candy, as I like to say. All the motions and shifts, he can create a simple 5-yard pass and turn it into a freeway for a touchdown because the team is confused. That kind of play could be used on 1st and 10. It could be used on 3rd and 15. If there's nobody in front of you, the only tackle that can be made is by the turf monster, which is still pretty rare, obviously. So I expect UCF to have the advantage in the game flow. I'm just concerned about big plays because of leverage with shifts and motions. But if the Knights can handle that, they should be in pretty good shape, really. I just don't think that Louisville is quite where they need to be defensively at this point. So as a quick final note, no player on the Louisville's roster is in the top 10 that is also a defensive lineman for tackles, not one. That's not a good sign. When your tackles all come from linebackers and especially DBs, top 3 out of 4 were DBs, that tells me your run defense is really struggling. So Brian Smith, Fan Nation, Inside the Knights, everybody have a blessed day.